I just finished playing Shadow of Mordor, and I'm just gonna let you know what my impressions are, knowing absolutely nothing about the game before going into it, and whether or not you should probably check it out or not. And if you want more videos like this, make sure you hit the subscribe button, as it helps the channel so much, and I would greatly appreciate it. Now to start, Shadow of Mordor is more or less tied into, or at least takes elements from the Lord of the Rings franchise, and overall has a story featuring a character named Talion. Talion actually has very unique powers, but I won't really mention too much on that right now anyway. But the game did come out back in 2014, so it's a little older, but still holds up really well, I will say. This game was developed by Monolith Productions, which I've actually never heard of, but apparently they are now shut down anyway, so I guess this is all we're gonna get in terms of the Shadow of Mordor and the Shadow of War games for Talion's story thus far anyway. I mean, I couldn't really see a future with it anyway at this point, and it's been so many years now, but who knows, maybe. But this is overall a action adventure kind of game, an RPG even. It's all in third person for the most part. I mean, you do go into first a little bit when it comes to some of your abilities, but it's really a nice time. You get to explore a little bit. It's nothing really too drastic. It's like most modern like single player games at this point, where you know, you have your main story and then you have a little side quest here or there or something to work on, and then some collectible items that you gotta gather, but nothing really too insane. I think with someone like me who tries to collect as many things as possible, I think I got about like 75% done with all the collectibles in the game, and I think I spent roughly about like 20 hours playing it until I completed it. Now granted, I was streaming, so it probably will take you a lot less time. Just overall, it was a good, decent experience for a game, and it probably could get completed in just a couple days of a few grindy hours. This game is available to play on PlayStation, Xbox, or even on the PC, and I will not lie, this was kind of hard to get through on PC. I did it with my mouse and keyboard. It is certainly a game that is centered around a console, but I don't like console or controller-based stuff, but I would recommend you play this with a controller just so it's a little easier. The aiming might be a little bit more difficult, but I think overall this seems like a game that was made for a controller, and I did kind of feel it a little bit with the mouse and keyboard. At least on the sensitivity, it just felt really weird the whole time. But it's not like it's totally unplayable. Like, I got through it with my keyboard and mouse. I wasn't like, oh my god, I can't actually complete this. Like, it was possible, and I was able to aim quite well and all of that, so I don't want you to like run for the hills now, but definitely I would recommend a controller when you play this game. Now, going into the story, Talion is a ranger who, I don't know, should I spoil it for you? Okay, well, he pretty much has some really cool powers, and you'll get to learn a lot about his story, but Talion, for the most part, is not exactly like a human. He has very unique powers that you'll pretty much see right off the gate of the game, but I'm just gonna leave it for you to sort of figure out on your own. But he is a cool character. He has a very, you know, complex backstory, a very tragic backstory, I would even mention, especially with his wife and son, which you will see right in the beginning of the game. But you pretty much just go straight into it. You learn some of the most basic mechanics. The tutorial phase is like super quick, 5 to 10 minutes, if that. It really was just like, all right, can you swing your sword? Can you dodge? Can you jump? It was pretty basic, so I mean, nothing there. And then you're like right off the get-go in Mordor. You're just in Mordor. You're just chilling in Mordor doing like who knows what. What's cool with this though, and what I do like about this game, is that there really isn't like this hand-holding type of vibe whatsoever. It's like all this action happens, you're trying to like comprehend what's happening, then all of a sudden you're just put out in Mordor and you're just like, okay, and the game's like, good luck, have fun. Which I actually personally do like. I don't like to have my hand held when I'm going through games. Like, I don't want to be reminded of tutorials all the time. Like, they'll definitely remind you, and it's super easy in my opinion to comprehend. It's just so nice because it really does allow you to explore. You get to go places, you get to check out strongholds. You're like, how strong am I? So then you want to test your might against like all these orcs and then maybe take a beating or two, but it's okay, you know? Anyway, it's a good time because you can do a lot of exploration. You can check out more of the different types of factions. So you will get associated with some of the orcs in there, or Uruks, throughout your time in Mordor. You'll start to get associated with people who are trapped in Mordor, who are looking for refuge essentially, and you're just overall going to kind of make a good reputation for yourself and help out others and see how you can kind of manipulate Mordor's forces against Sauron. So obviously Sauron, bad. We don't like him in this game whatsoever, even though he kind of cute though. Just overall, the main premise of the game is to build up your forces, make sure you can attack Sauron, pretty simple, and see what you can do with what you got. But the backstory and background behind Talion's story and other recognizable Lord of the Rings characters that come up are actually really cool, and I will kind of mention this as a negative though. This game is definitely not one you want to go to if you know absolutely nothing about Lord of the Rings. If you don't know anything about Lord of the Rings, maybe you should know a little bit before playing it, because I don't want people to think that what happens in the game is actually like what happened in the books and stuff. It's not accurate to the books or the movies or any of like Tolkien's work when it comes down to the story and the plot. Like some really significant things happen, but it's not like how at all it unravels in the actual like Lord of the Rings trilogy. And yeah, one thing that you'll also note with this game, how I'm going back on the exploration standpoint of it, you will find that there are plenty of collectibles and items to get, but I never felt like it was so overwhelming. I think that with this game, it was pretty simple. Like you would collect maybe like 2 things in a certain region in your map, and there weren't like a lot of regions in the map. In fact, I would almost say that the maps felt smaller the more I progressed. Like they just felt like they were way too small. There's only 2 maps in this game, and you could pretty much probably like 50% them in like a good 6 hours, if that. Like it was super quick to kind of get through and get all of the things sorted. But like in each region on the map, there's maybe like 6, 7, 8 regions at most, I would assume, and there really wasn't like crazy collectibles. You'd have like maybe like 2 artifacts and like 2 random things to go pick up. But I think that was actually pretty nice. It allowed you, or at least promoted you to explore, but it never like required you to, right? And I think with this game too, especially when I first started in it and I went out into the world and it was just like good luck, I felt so eaten alive by the map. I was like, oh my god, there's so much to explore, oh my god. But then like once I started getting my footing together, I realized that I didn't have to explore everything. I just could focus on the main story quest if I'd like, and then there were also like other things I could do, or if the main story quest was around, that there were other people or like war chiefs or captains I could look at. So it was kind of nice to divvy up that sort of pushing you into looking and going out of your way for exploration based things, but it also wasn't like you had to do it and you know you cannot progress until you have like 18 artifacts, and it wasn't anything like that. Now, one of the big things with this game that they introduced was something called the Nemesis system. This actually was super duper cool, and I have not really seen it in any other games around that time period anyway. The Nemesis system is essentially you will be introduced to a whole bunch of orc captains or just soldiers of the type, but people who are of a ranking of some kind within Mordor. If you were able to take out one of the captains, they would be downed, and then essentially there are people who could be promoted up in their place. So it's kind of cool because you can see the way that like the war and strategy could work, and just overall how it works, especially if you die. Like people within the orc like Nemesis system will essentially end up getting promoted, or others will attack each other. Like sometimes there was even like dilemmas within the orcs and themselves, I guess. But it was definitely interesting to see how you could almost see the cause and effect impact going on with the orcs, and then how you as a character can influence everything that they're doing. So it was even cooler because there are other things that you can do within their system. So you can even potentially create your own orc army, which was so cool with the Uruks anyway. Like you could like take them over, and then there were like war chiefs even. So it was almost like if you could get to the leadership and essentially like make them your soldier, then you could pretty much have them like take out anybody below them, and it was just so intriguing to see. So it was a really cool system to see, and I really liked the game just based off of that, because not only that, if you take out certain captains, then they'll also remember you. They could potentially come back and they'll remember you, and then they'll be like, I'm so mad at you, or like they'll be even more enraged. Like it's pretty cool because it's almost like remembering what had happened, and it never is like this like weird NPC like, oh, you've been taken out and, you know, like nothing ever comes from it. I will say that in a way I did feel like this was like an Assassin's Creed, almost like an Elden Ring kind of vibe, at least with just like, hey, you have a main story to go with, but you can kind of run around wherever and it's sort of up to you on how you want to go about it. But it wasn't like super challenging and like the Elden Ring kind of vibe where it's like, oh my gosh, I'm taking so many, like I take one hit and I'm like nearly dead. It wasn't like that at all, at least not on the basic normal difficulty I was on. But I would say that this can be a little challenging on the combat. You do have to get really sort of like out of your comfort zone is what I would say. You definitely need to utilize stealth to your advantage, utilize the environment to your advantage, and also utilize people around you who might have extra info on how you can take out some of your enemies, which was super cool as well. And then of course, just kind of going into like the gameplay, the combat style, and just overall like the way the game looks and feels. I think this game was so well done. It's very well done in terms of how the game can make you feel like you're in a pretty dark area, or like you're in Mordor. Things seem tough in certain areas, but it's also allowing you to breathe a little bit to at least explore, understand more of your surroundings with the game, and also learn more about your combat. There are a lot of cool things that you could do with Talion. He's a very interesting character on what abilities he has, and also it's super cool to see him sort of, you know, learn things as he goes, but also how other people can influence the way he fights and does things as well. So it's really interesting to see the feeling and the vibe of the combat. I think that's honestly what made the game so good, was the combat. There's a lot of cool action-packed sort of slayings that can happen. And overall, I think when it just comes to the vibe that you're going for, it's pretty good on the ambiance section for sure. If you are someone who's looking to play the game in this year, I still think this game holds up pretty well. I mean, the graphics don't look that bad, and just overall the combat is still pretty stellar, and I would almost compare it to most modern games still. And I really think the only thing that sucked about this game was just the story, because I don't know if it's because I know how things go. I don't know if it's just because the story was kind of shorter than what I anticipated, but I definitely felt like this game on the story aspect was just kind of all over the place. But that is because they have their main story, like the main quest, and then there's sort of like side quest areas and stuff like that. So I think that a lot of it kind of comes down to like how many people you meet and how many people you end up meeting and talking with, but how insignificant it kind of ends up being in the end of the story. Just the end of the story didn't really feel pretty satisfactory. It kind of felt like it was a build up to the next game, which I still have yet to play. Hopefully it kind of makes more sense in Shadow of War, but we'll see. I do think that this game overall is pretty good, and you should check it out if you would like to play a Lord of the Rings based game. But it's not at all bad for a game that came out 10 plus years ago now, you know? But I hope that gave you some sort of idea of what you can expect from Shadow of Mordor, and if you should play it or not, coming from someone who never heard of the game really until chat told her, hey, you should play this game, it's pretty all right. And then I did, and it was pretty all right. All right, guys, I hope you have a good day, and until next time, you better stay weird, weirdos.